I live in a yellow three-bedroom house with a white porch in Columbus, Ohio. It's the kind of house that looks ordinary from the outside, but carries 1,000 quiet stories inside. The mortgage is mine, the keys are mine, and everything within those walls belongs to my two children, Jamie, who's 10, and Tyler, who just turned 7. I bought the house 6 years ago after my divorce, using the savings I had built working as a senior accountant for a software firm downtown. Every dollar I earned was meant to build stability for my children. That Sunday started like most others. Church in the morning, grocery run afterward, and then a drive across town to my parents' red brick home. My mom, Patricia, had called earlier that week, insisting we come for dinner. She said she missed the kids and wanted a real family evening. I agreed because, despite the tension that often lingered between us, I still hoped my children would know their grandparents. When I pulled into their long driveway, the familiar ache crept in, the one that always came when I stepped out of my car and walked into that house. My sister Emily's SUV was already parked by the garage, and I could hear laughter echoing from inside. Her husband Mark was there too, loud as ever. "Look who finally made it," Emily called as I stepped through the door, wiping her hands on a towel. She was all smiles, her blonde hair tied neatly back, her pearl earrings glinting in the kitchen light. "Mom's been waiting for you to bring the kids." Jamie and Tyler ran ahead, their small sneakers squeaking against the tile floor. I followed slowly, balancing the casserole dish I had brought. But the moment I stepped into the dining room, my smile froze. Jamie and Tyler sat at the far end of the table, away from everyone else. Their plates were empty, while my sister's daughters, Kayla and Rose, were already on their second helpings of roast chicken and mashed potatoes. The scent of gravy filled the room, but all I could feel was the sharp sting of humiliation. "Mom," I said quietly, "did the boys eat yet?" Before she could answer, Emily laughed and said, "We're just making sure the normal-looking kids eat first. You know how picky Kayla is with leftovers." The air in my lungs turned heavy. My father, Henry, didn't even look up from his plate. He just poured more gravy for Kayla and said, "Let's not make a big deal out of it." Jamie's eyes dropped to the floor. Tyler fiddled with his fork, pretending not to hear. My heart cracked. I wanted to scream, to flip that table and tell them what monsters they'd become, but I didn't. I'd learned long ago that confrontation only gave them more reasons to twist my words.
So I stayed calm.
I walked to the counter, scooped fresh food onto 2 plates, and carried them to my kids. "Come on," I said softly. "We'll eat outside. The weather's nice." The backyard smelled of cut grass and rain-soaked earth. The swing set my dad had built years ago still stood, though the paint had chipped. We sat on the patio table, and I watched Jamie and Tyler eat in silence. They didn't complain or ask why they were treated differently. They just ate like they were used to it. When they finished, I packed up the leftovers I had brought and guided them to the car. I could feel the heat behind my eyes, but I kept it together. As I closed the front door behind me, I heard something that made my knees weak. Emily's voice floated from the hallway. "Honestly, Mom, it's better this way. We want family photos that look right. You know what I mean." My mother sighed, her voice weary but agreeing. "I know. We can't put everyone first, Emily. It's just complicated." They didn't know I was still there. They didn't know I had heard every cruel word. That drive home felt longer than ever. The streetlights blurred through my tears. My kids fell asleep in the back seat, unaware of what had been said about them. When we got home, I carried them inside, tucked them into bed, and sat in the living room. I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every past favor, every small loan I'd given to my family. I got up and opened the drawer where I keep my financial records. Folder after folder, bank statements, receipts, transfer slips. I spread them across the table and began adding. $600 for Mark's truck repair. $2,000 for Emily's dental work. $5,000 to help with their down payment when they bought that shiny new house in the suburbs. $2,500 to bail them out of a temporary business loss. Then there was the $18,000 I had wired last year to cover Dad's tax issue. The total kept growing. I added, recalculated, and added again. $183,000. That's how much I had given or covered for them over the last 8 years. Money that could have gone into my children's college fund. Money that had been spent under the excuse of helping the family. And what did my family give back? Scraps. Not just on a plate, but in respect, in love, in dignity. I sat there in silence, the clock ticking above the fireplace. Outside, the street was quiet, the world unaware that something inside me had shifted forever. I wasn't the soft daughter anymore. I wasn't the one they could guilt into fixing their mistakes. I was a mother now, and a protector. I looked over at Jamie and Tyler, sleeping soundly on the sofa, their faces peaceful under the warm lamplight. I brushed their hair back and whispered, "You'll never be treated like that again. Not by them. Not by anyone." That night, I promised myself something unbreakable. The next time my family saw me, they would no longer see their safety net. They would see a woman who remembered every dollar, every insult, every quiet humiliation, and who had finally decided to stop paying the price for other people's comfort. And for the first time in years, I went to bed with my heart steady, ready to rewrite the rules. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft rhythm of rain against the kitchen window. My hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee as I sat at the table, staring at the folder that held 8 years of financial proof of my silence. $183,000, my quiet contributions to a family that thought my children deserved leftovers. The bitterness from last night still lingered, but under it was something new. Clarity. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. By 8 o'clock, I was downtown in the marble-floored lobby of Huntington National Bank. The smell of polished wood and printer ink filled the air. A teller in a navy blazer smiled politely as I approached the counter. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" I smiled back. "I'd like to end all recurring transfers from my account. Every single one connected to Patricia and Henry Morris." Her eyes flickered with surprise. "Of course, ma'am. Do you have the account numbers?" "I do," I said, sliding the folder across the counter. "Also, I need to remove my name from a co-signed small business line of credit under Mark Williams. It was opened in 2018, limit of $25,000, currently at $41,300. The teller's eyebrows rose slightly, but she typed quickly. "That will need manager approval," she said. "Would you like to make an appointment with our senior officer?"
Yes.
"Today, if possible." 30 minutes later, I sat in a glass office across from a woman named Denise. She had kind eyes and a no-nonsense tone. I explained what I wanted, complete separation. No shared cards, no cosigns, no safety nets. I was done being the financial backstop for people who saw my generosity as a duty. Denise nodded. "I'll initiate the paperwork for the card and the transfers. As for the cosign business line, it'll require either full repayment or refinancing in the other party's name. You'll need to get his consent or a lawyer's assistance." "I already have a lawyer in mind," I said. By the time I left the bank, the sky had cleared. The pavement still glistened, but sunlight spilled across the city streets. I breathed in deeply, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, control. When I got home, I sat at my desk and pulled out my will and insurance papers. Every line reminded me of how much I'd tried to take care of everyone but myself. I took a pen and crossed out the old beneficiaries. I listed Jamie and Tyler as the only heirs. My parents and sister were nowhere on the new list. No more mixing blood and bank accounts. No more guilt payments. That evening, I called my lawyer, Olivia Price. She was an old acquaintance from a bookkeeping seminar I attended years ago. She answered on the second ring. "Olivia Price Law Office," she said. "Hi, Olivia. It's me, Sarah Morris. I need to schedule a consultation. It's about removing my name from some co-signed debts and drafting a boundary letter." Her tone softened. "Of course, Sarah. How soon can you come in?" "I can be there tomorrow morning." When I walked into Olivia's office the next day, it smelled faintly of coffee and leather-bound books. Her degrees lined the wall, and sunlight filtered through blinds onto a neat oak desk. She gestured for me to sit. "Tell me everything," she said.
So I did.
I told her about the years of financial rescues, about my sister's endless emergencies, and about the dinner that had finally broken me. I didn't cry. My voice was steady, almost cold. When I finished, Olivia leaned back in her chair. "You're doing the right thing," she said simply. "You've been financing dysfunction. It's time to stop." She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "We'll draft letters to each institution where you're co-signed. You'll formally request removal and revoke consent for any further transactions. I'll also prepare a notice stating that future debts incurred under your name without your authorization will be treated as fraud." "Can we do that?"
I asked.
"We can," she said with a small smile. "And we will." We spent 2 hours going over every account. Each signature felt like a door closing, and I didn't mind the sound. By the end of the meeting, I felt lighter, as if a physical weight had lifted off my chest. Olivia handed me a folder with labeled envelopes.
"Send these certified," she said. "Keep copies.
Boundaries protect what you love." That night, I sat at my kitchen counter with my laptop open. I typed out one message. Short, clear, and final. "Family, I love you, but things are changing. I will no longer be sending money, covering bills, or co-signing loans. I am withdrawing from all financial involvement effective immediately. Any accounts tied to my name are being closed or transferred. From now on, respect for my children comes before any form of financial help. If they're not treated as equals, we won't be part of any gathering. I'm still your daughter and sister, but I'm not your wallet." I read it twice before pressing send. The silence afterward was heavy, almost sacred. I placed my phone face down, turned off the lights, and went to make dinner. Jamie came into the kitchen first, still in his school uniform. "Mom, can we have grilled cheese again?" he asked. "Sure," I said with a smile. Tyler followed behind him, dragging his art supplies. "Can we draw in the kitchen?" "Of course." As I buttered the bread and listened to their laughter, I realized this was peace, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. They drew pictures of sunflowers and taped them to the fridge. Tyler asked if we could plant some by the fence when spring came. I said yes, and we started planning where they'd go. We laughed when the cat stepped onto the drawing and left a paw print in the middle. Jamie said we should keep it there for luck. Later, as I tucked them into bed, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't known in years. The kind that comes when you finally stop bleeding yourself dry to buy affection that should have been free. Downstairs, my phone buzzed with unread messages. Mom, Emily, and Mark. I didn't open any of them. Tomorrow could wait. Tonight was for me and my boys. And for the first time in a long while, I slept without guilt. 2 weeks after I sent that message, the calls started. The first came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing invoices for a client. My phone lit up with Mark's name. I stared at it for a second before answering. "The line got frozen," he said without even saying hello. His voice carried the edge of panic. "They're asking for immediate payment. You were supposed to be my guarantor." "No, Mark," I said evenly. "I was your cosigner. I've had my name removed. You'll have to speak directly to the bank." There was a pause. Then the sound of his breath tightened. "You can't just walk away from family like this." I didn't walk away. I stepped back. "There's a difference." He muttered something about betrayal and hung up. I placed my phone down and took a deep breath, feeling the silence settle around me like armor. 3 days later, Emily called. Her voice came out sharp and trembling. "The credit card company closed the account. I still have a balance."
"You know how hard things are right now."
"How could you do this?"
"I didn't do anything," I said.
"The card was in both our names. You'll need to call them and make a payment plan." "You're cruel," she hissed. "You've changed." "I'm a mother," I said quietly, and ended the call. By the end of the month, my mother called too, her tone sweet and polished. "Honey, we're thinking of having a family dinner," she said. "It's been a while. Bring the kids." I leaned back on my sofa, eyeing the soft glow of the lamp beside me. Will the table be set for all children the same way this time? The silence stretched long. Then she cleared her throat. "Of course," she said, her voice tight. "Then we'll come for dessert," I said. Not dinner. Dessert only. When Sunday came, I baked a cherry pie from scratch and brought it to their house. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed something different. The laughter was quieter, the smiles more strained. The dining table was perfectly set, for children, for identical plates. Jamie and Tyler sat beside their cousins this time, and no one whispered or joked. During dessert, Emily asked about my work, her voice forced into politeness. My father nodded and commented on how tall the boys had gotten. My mother kept refilling coffee cups. Everything looked fine, but the air was heavy. I could feel the weight of what was left unsaid. When it was over, I hugged my parents lightly and took my children home. Jamie hummed in the back seat, unaware of how carefully that piece had been staged. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was tired. In the following weeks, I began hearing things. Small whispers from friends and old neighbors. The house my parents had lived in for 30 years was not as stable as I'd believed. They had taken a second mortgage a few years back, one I never knew about. Payments had fallen behind. The bank had called in a clause when they missed 2 cycles. Emily's husband, Mark, had to sell his fishing boat. Their dream vacation fund was gone. My sister had to pull Kayla from a private art camp because the check had bounced. It wasn't just about money. It was about how fragile the whole system had been, built on my quiet contributions. None of it made me happy. I didn't smile or feel revenge. It made me quiet. Money had been the invisible glue holding everyone together, and when I stopped pouring it in, the cracks began to show. For years, I had mistaken dependence for closeness. Now, without my money, there was only truth. One Sunday evening, my parents asked to meet. "Just to talk," Mom said. "There's a family counselor we'd like you to join us with. For the kids' sake." I agreed, partly out of curiosity, partly out of a need for closure. The counseling center was small, tucked behind a row of maple trees near our old high school. The room smelled faintly of mint tea and new carpet. We sat in a circle, me, my parents, Emily, and Mark. The therapist, a calm woman named Grace, smiled gently. "Let's start with why we're here," she said. I went first. "I want my children to be safe and respected," I said. "I won't expose them to an environment that teaches them they're less than others." Emily crossed her arms. "She's embarrassed us," she said bitterly. "She cut everyone off and made us look like beggars." Mark added, "She made me look weak. She's family, and family helps each other." Grace turned to him. "Helping and enabling are 2 different things," she said softly. My father was silent for a long time. His hands rested on his knees, his face pale. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "I leaned on you because you were reliable, Sarah." I didn't realize how much I'd come to expect that reliability. Mom started to cry quietly beside him. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said. We thought you were strong enough to carry all of us." I swallowed hard. "That's the problem," I said. "You assumed strength meant comfort. It didn't. It meant exhaustion." Grace nodded. "Families change when money leaves the center of the room," she said. "And sometimes that's the only way real respect grows." The rest of the session passed slowly, filled with awkward pauses and half-hearted apologies. But it wasn't meaningless. Something shifted in that room. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was the first time they actually listened without excuses. When I left, the evening air felt cold and clean. I stood in the parking lot, looking up at the sky streaked with fading pink. My reflection in the car window looked older but stronger. Driving home, I realized that peace wasn't loud. It didn't come with applause or satisfaction. It came in small breaths, the kind you take when you stop trying to hold everyone else up and finally let the weight fall where it belongs. That night, after tucking Jamie and Tyler into bed, I sat by the window and watched the streetlights flicker. The phone stayed silent. No more emergency calls, no more guilt messages. Just stillness. And for the first time in my life, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. Spring came early that year in Ohio, and with it came a quiet peace I hadn't known before. The trees outside my yellow house bloomed before April had even settled in. The air was soft and smelled faintly of lilac and rain. Jamie and Tyler begged me to start the garden, and I finally said yes. Together, we planted rows of sunflowers along the back fence. Jamie kept a hand-drawn chart taped to the refrigerator, marking each sprout's height week by week. Tyler made a tiny sign that said, "Please be gentle," and staked it by the fence like a little guard. Every time I looked out at those growing stems, I saw us, rising again, quietly and strong. We'd started hosting small gatherings at our house, nothing like the tense dinners that used to happen at my parents' home. Just cookies in the backyard, lemonade on the porch, laughter that didn't feel rehearsed. An hour at most. Everyone brought something, and every child got the same plate, the same seat, the same share. It wasn't about the food anymore, it was about fairness. When my parents began to come again, I noticed something had changed in them, too. They arrived on time, stayed calm, and brought small gifts instead of expectations. My mother asked Jamie about his science club and Tyler about soccer. She didn't compare them to their cousins. My father helped hang string lights on the porch one afternoon and didn't try to take charge. He just listened. Emily, though, took longer. The first time she came, she walked in stiffly, her jaw tight, her eyes darting around like she was expecting judgment. She stayed only 20 minutes. A few weeks later, she returned, holding a pan of brownies and a shaky smile. "They're nothing fancy," she said. "Just thought the kids might like them." Jamie hugged her before I could say a word. Emily stood frozen for a moment, then smiled and bent down to hug him back. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. A few days later, I got a text from Mark. It said simply, "Got a steady job again. Setting a real budget this time. No more loans." His tone was different, tired, grounded. It didn't sound like the man who used to lecture me about family responsibility. It sounded like someone who finally understood what responsibility actually meant. Inside my house, I kept the money doors closed tight. I paid my own mortgage and no one else's. I put $600 each month into a college fund for the boys. Another $50 went into a glass jar we called the fun jar. When it filled up, we'd take the boys roller skating or buy paint for their room. It was a small thing, but it made us feel free. On the wall near the kitchen, I taped a big sheet of craft paper and wrote in thick black marker, "We do not accept less than full respect." It became our family rule. We read it every morning before school. We read it when relatives called. We read it when we were tempted to make peace by shrinking. There were moments when guilt tried to creep back in, when my mother's voice would waver over the phone, or when Emily would hint about how hard things have been. But I stayed firm. I had learned that compassion doesn't mean becoming someone's safety net. It means showing them they can stand without it. One Sunday in early May, Mom called and said she wanted a family photo. "Nothing fancy," she promised. "Just everyone together. Maybe in your backyard with those sunflowers you planted." I hesitated, but something in her tone was genuine. So I agreed. That evening, the sun dipped low and gold over the fence, casting long shadows across the grass. My father wore his old plaid shirt, Mom brought lemonade, and Emily arrived with her daughters. We stood shoulder to shoulder, arranging ourselves for the camera. No one argued about where to stand. No one moved a child to the edge of the row. For once, it wasn't about appearances, it was about belonging. When the camera clicked, Jamie laughed and Tyler grinned, squinting in the light. Behind them, the sunflowers stretched tall, their golden faces turned toward the fading sun. I felt something inside me settle, like a long battle finally laid to rest. Afterward, we sat on the porch. My father cleared his throat. "You were right," he said quietly. "We leaned on you because we could." I didn't see how unfair that was until everything fell apart. I looked at him, and for the first time in years, I saw not authority, but humility. "I just wanted my kids to be respected," I said softly. He nodded. "And they should be. You've raised them well, Sarah." My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. There were tears in her eyes, but they weren't from guilt this time. They were from understanding. We didn't talk about money that night. We didn't need to. It wasn't the glue holding us together anymore. Over the next few months, things found a new rhythm. Family gatherings stayed small, light, and easy. Emily and I talked more, but about real things, about work, motherhood, life, not about loans or who is doing better. When problems came up, they handled them without turning to me. It felt like watching a once sinking ship finally learn to sail on its own. And inside my home, peace became routine. The boys grew taller, the laughter louder. Our evenings were filled with movie nights, school projects, and sunflower watching. I'd catch them standing by the fence, comparing the height of the flowers to their own, giggling when they realized the tallest one had finally outgrown them. I learned something important that year. Money doesn't fix hearts. It only reveals their shape. When I stopped paying for a family that refused to grow, I saw the truth fast. It was loud and ugly at first, but then it softened into something real. Now, when my children ask why we don't go to every family event, I tell them, because love isn't about showing up everywhere, it's about showing up where you're valued. They nod like they understand, and maybe in their own way, they do. If anyone forgets our rule, we leave. If anyone asks me to reopen the old money doors, I say no. My voice doesn't shake anymore. We have our porch, where the evening breeze feels kind. We have our kitchen, where every plate matches. We have a fence lined with tall yellow faces that turn toward the light every single morning. And as I watch them sway in the wind, I know I did the right thing. I didn't just protect my children's dignity, I taught them how to protect it themselves.